chapter 12. Let's go ahead.
All right. Finance committee issue, I guess. We're gonna talk two things today. First, we're gonna talk about the bond, and secondly, we're gonna talk about, the budget. So maybe to, kick off, starting on the bond, I guess the issue that we've been having the most discussion about is the scope of what the bond should encompass. You know, I think it's a public safety bond offering, so there's no doubt that it'll encompass 911 and corrections. Jerry, did you ever get any more information on what the corrections cost?
No, I'm gonna have that for the, hopefully the numbers will come back from the architect for that June 28th meeting. Is that, Commissioner Kavanaugh, is that the date of the administrative service?
I think that's right, yeah.
That's the date that we've told him we want those numbers back. So that's gonna answer the question about corrections. Okay. And I'm trying to pull a number for what we discussed last week of pulling certain components out.
And the other discussion we were having about the scope is that some commissioners were saying the scope should be narrowed into a very just pure public service, which would be corrections and 911. Well, other people have the opinion that this is the opportunity to really redo the whole Fitzgerald home in its entirety and open up some space there to put operations from the treasurer's office, emergency management, environmental service. So there's representatives here from those departments, so I think maybe that would be a good point to have some discussion about today about what we think the scope is. So I don't know who wants to start on that, on their feeling.
Start talking about our feelings?
What they feel about, you know, what should be included in the bond.
Go ahead. Well, I'll make a comment. I think it has to be public safety, period. I don't think we need grades for the Department of Environmental Services qualifies. I don't think plumbing for corrections qualifies. I think it, you know, if the public gets the idea that we're throwing in, you know, renovation of the sewer homes and work, I think we can talk about. We still haven't gotten a letter, but supposedly there's a written opinion since we have to give that money back. Brian got no opinion yet. And I think we need, if that's what it says, we need to get Congressman Ashford involved and get that changed. But I think if we move 911 up there as a legal, you know, and we are gonna lose the crime lab, there's no doubt in my mind. And Joshua Senator was very powerful, told me that, of course, when the changes for it, that they're gonna peel away the responsibility of a crime lab from the sheriff's statute, so it's gone, I think. So I think we ought to be talking about, you know, we need to really know whether or not we could move 911 up there. It seems to me we could. And, so anyway, I think it has to be, I'm sorry if I'm offending people, but it has to be, I think, totally public safety. I don't know how we can do it with a straight face. I think it's dishonest. If we're gonna do that, call it public facilities.
The only thing I'd say on the plumbing at the correction facility is this, you know, because Mark was talking with us. The trouble is, if we don't fix the plumbing, we're gonna have an overcrowded situation, and that involves, or is my feeling, that's public safety. So I feel you can do that. I agree with Mike on the environmental, you know, kind of thing, and some of that out of Minky. I agree on that. But I think the plumbing at the corrections and having that so that we're open and everything's the right way there is critical to the public safety of both the inmates and our personnel. Now, somebody from corrections that has way more knowledge than me can comment that I'm wrong, but that's what I think. Jim?
I think that maybe we should take a long view of what we're trying to do here. And looking forward, think about the alternatives. I'm not married to, or never have been, the idea that we label this a public safety bond exclusively. There's no reason that we have to do that. This is a public safety and county efficiency improvement bond issue, if you will, because we have a big honkin' unmet, overdue, deferred maintenance bill on a lot of different properties that we have, some of which are public safety properties, some of which aren't, some of which are properties that we own and we should get rid of and consolidate into properties that we're going to do upgrades with this bond issue. So if it gives people the sweats to put stuff in here that needs to be in here because we don't want to do property tax increases down the line to do the same stuff, and it's not technically public safety, then let's rebrand this thing so that we can get everything in there that needs to be in there. We can market whatever we need to market, just a matter of doing everything that we need to do so that we're not going to have a property tax increase. We just refinanced or authorized a refinancing of a bunch of bonds this morning, which is a judicial use of our AAA credit rating, and it saves us a ton of money on property tax increases. So I'm looking at this as a long-term thing to do a bunch of stuff together, the bulk of which is public safety. But if it's not public safety, then rebrand the issue to get done what needs to be done. Because I'm telling you again, and I've said this all along, I'm not doing property tax increases for any of this stuff down the line. And that's our alternative. You can go this way, or you can go property tax increases. And I'm not doing the property tax increase when we have a perfectly good and fiscally responsible bond alternative, which is better for the taxpayers of Douglas County. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay, who else? Did you wanna say something, Doug? I saw you.
Doug Kagan, Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom. We look at this issue from a dollar and cents standpoint. And 2 years ago, we took a tour of the West Maple campus and we saw how it was being, torn down to the floorboard. And if the county can show that in the long run, taxpayers will save money by renovating that area, not just for the county offices that we've discussed here before, but also other county offices, if you can itemize it and prove as far as you can that taxpayers will save money in the long run by filling up that building. And we went out there a couple of years ago when it's built like, it's an old building, but it's built like a fortress. And I kind of think that the county will save money by just putting as many offices out there as you can, maybe not all right away, but in the future, put more offices out there instead of having buildings leased and owned scattered all over the county, where you have to fix every roof and fix every parking lot and fix every plumbing and electrical system. That's capital improvements, and that's where your money comes from tax increases, and we don't want a tax increase. Downstairs at the board meeting, you had discussion about how interest rates are low right now for interest rates if you float joint obligation bonds. And we would support, expanding the bond issue if you could show, again, itemization how the county could save money in the long run by filling up that building out on West Maple.
Okay, very good. Anyone else wanna?
I think it'd be interesting for the treasurer's office to talk about that, it might not be public safety, but the benefits to the taxpayers of Douglas County from potentially moving that operation, the redone operation to the Fitzgerald home.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Josh.
John Ewing, Douglas County Treasurer, in case they need that. But one of the things we've always looked at since I've been the treasurer here in Douglas County is being a good partner with the county. I agree with what Mr. Kagan is saying in looking at this, and what Mr. Kavanaugh, Commissioner Kavanaugh is saying, in looking at this long-term from a standpoint of saving the citizens money. The reality is, for us, right now, you're paying rent every year at our Maple location. And by having us as part of this facility, you fill it up, you utilize it efficiently, and you save $72,000, almost $73,000 a year in lease costs. I also see the possibility of that campus being utilized when the State Department of Motor Vehicles looks at their RFP for driver's license services, being able to house that facility as well and have it generate rent income for the counties. So there are some advantages to being there, and if the sheriff's department would have the inspection station there as well, you would then have all three of those services there available for the citizens of Douglas County at what is really the geographic center of Douglas County.
Fremont. Go ahead, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
So those are my thoughts. We certainly understand that there might be some heartburn by commissioners on how it's packaged, and certainly we will work with you on our part of it, but we just believe it makes sense financially not to have a tax increase, to utilize the facility effectively, and to save the lease expense, as well as being prepared for the Department of Motor Vehicles RFP when they develop their process. They're not going to have driver's license locations at each of our locations anymore. It's going to probably be one major location in the county, and we want to make sure we're prepared to compete for that.
Could I ask Joe a question? Today, we talked about, there was a joint bond issue that came up today that kind of surprised me. Would you talk a little bit about that for the telephones? What was that all about?
Oh, that was the bond that was put out about 5 years ago, and that was a way to fund the capital requirements for .com. And, you know, the city's bonding requirements are different than ours, that they can go out and issue bonds without a vote of the people. So what it was is the city floated, I think it was about a $8 million bond to fund IT equipment. And then the county has been paying, 50% of the debt service, the principal and interest, and the city's been paying 50%. And that was just a mechanism that we use to fund .com capital requirements.
Well, what if we come up with projects? I think the police and the city administration are looking at, and of course, the chief of staff is sitting here next to me. I'll let him comment on it, but I think they're considering a precinct possibly at the Fitzgerald site. And if they are, I don't know why this can't trigger that kind of bond operation. If the city can float it, we can participate in it somehow, and that, I think we need to figure out a way to do that. I was surprised. I thought they had to have a vote of the people. I didn't know the city could do that. But the other thing is, I've got a couple of maps in my office that show all the city locations, all the county locations, what we're renting, what we own, and all this sort of thing. And I do think there's some real opportunities to come together and do some things. And we've got a lot of property that's sitting out there by itself, and some of it we have to pay for because of probation and so forth. They're kind of isolated, they're different by themselves. But the thing that I really, and I mentioned to Marty, that I don't want to blindside him, but I want to ask him if the city plans to participate in the bond issue, and if, what is it that you'd like to get out of it, if anything. We need you. We need you to help us get this bond issue passed. We're going to be working with our rural fire departments, all that sort of thing, but we do need to say that this will benefit the Omaha Police and the radio system if that's what would happen. I know the sheriff's office has some different ideas about what they want to do with theirs, and it's not compatible with yours. So, what would you tell us? Where are we on this? Are you able to support us, do you think, or what qualifications are there, if any?
Thanks, Mike.
The city, as you know, we've been visiting on this issue, discussing this issue for about a month now. There are some items of public safety that are of interest to us, and we've been discussing those. We also know that the sheriff's office is interested in those same items. We wanna make sure that, whatever we do, it doesn't make us less interoperable, because that was the whole purpose of getting the 800 trunk radio system back in 2000, so that we would all be perfectly interoperable. And specifically what I'm talking about is the encryption. We're undecided on that yet, whether or not that's necessary and desirable, or if our money should be spent elsewhere. The police department is currently talking amongst themselves about capital expenditure items that they are interested in for the coming budget, and if that might be something they could request out of this bond issue. For example, the police department, you will probably be able to identify, it just has a helicopter that needs to have infrared capabilities. That system is called FLIR. I think it has about a $500,000 price tag. What it does is identifies hot spots on the ground, so if there's people, bodies that you're searching for, especially at night, it would benefit a great deal. We're just trying to decide, and the police department will do this, decide if that's something that's more important to them, and more importantly, more important to the public than maybe radio encryption. I'm also talking to Tom Wheeler at the sheriff's office to make sure that if we do something on encryption, we do it together, so that we don't then create, isolate departments based on encryption. And just so everybody knows, it doesn't mean that their 800 radios will become useless. All it means is it'd be more cumbersome to talk on a channel that's encrypted. By encrypted, what that means is it's scrambled so that no one can eavesdrop on that traffic. Now, all the dispatch channels are not encrypted, so the media has access to those, and they should, but certain times on rare occasions, for tactical reasons, the conversation needs to be private. You go to an encrypted channel, and all the law enforcement agencies need to have the same type of encryption. So we want to make sure that we don't step away from the sheriff's office, or the fire department doesn't step away from the police department in regards to encryption, because they all have to, it's important they all talk together. But having said that, we have existing encryption, and the question before us is, do we want to upgrade or just keep the same encryption? And maybe there's something else, at least for right now, that would be more beneficial to the citizens of Omaha as far as public safety is concerned. For example, again, the infrared equipment for the helicopter. We also talk about there's software that would allow you to talk on your cell phone on the 800 trunk radio system. So if there's an incident, if there's a command post set up, and command staff would like to talk on the radio system using their cell phone, they would do that, but the software isn't there yet. I've also talked to the 911 center, trying to decide whether or not we could, if there's equipment there that would allow us to better locate people talking on cell phones. I know you guys have probably discussed that exhaustively lately because it came up. I don't know that we've found a fix for that. That the real fix there is probably with the phone companies. But now I'm going to answer Mike's question. Yes, the city's interested, but the police department isn't done discussing this amongst themselves, and we have not presented a package to the mayor yet, so she can sign off on this, and she would like to know firsthand exactly not only what the public safety components are of this bond issue, but she would like to know, if she's going to support the bond issue, she would like to be familiar with it in its entirety, so that she and others can talk intelligently on it when asked questions, for example, at a town hall meeting. For example, what are you gonna, what's this $5 million for? Is it gonna be spent on, capital improvements? Is it out to Fitz home? What are the advantages of moving the 911 center over to Fitz home? I'm sure there's compelling reasons for doing that. We've been talking about it for a long time, and to have something very positive to tell the public is important, and I know you need our assistance. You'd probably like to have Todd Schmaderer, as well as our new police chief, Dan Olson, help us with this, because their voices would be loud and clear on this. So I don't have a definitive answer for you yet, but just the fact that I'm here discussing it will tell you that we have an interest in what's going on here.
Well, if I could say this, and I'll be very brief. I said this to Marty before, that my position is that whatever the city wants is okay with me. I don't care if they don't do the radios. If they want to do the infrared capability and they want to do the cell phone thing with radios, that's great. I'm for it. Put that in the bond issue, and they're off and running. We need the city with us. We can't go this alone. Absolutely not. So I I think if we can get something to him that he can take to the mayor about what it is we're thinking of doing.
That's what we have to
I
decide.
know, I know, and then, once that happens, then she can decide if she wants to put in these other things and how we can, gain her support and move on.
Mike, if we put in the infrared, which is service to the city, would we just be paying for it?
Yes, I think so.
But where, the way I think
We
you
use
told
it
me
too.
this is that, where you're thinking right now, in lieu of doing the encryption and whatever that was, you're saying in lieu of putting that in the bond offering, this would be more beneficial to the city is to put the infrared for the helicopter, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right, exactly right.
And the reason I say that we would pay for it is that I live in the city of Omaha and Douglas County, and I think most everybody at the table, except for our farmer representative,
It's almost unanimous.
lives in, you glow in the dark, that's the deal. No, but, so I mean, I think it benefits all of us, and of course, the helicopter travels the entire region, it doesn't just do
That's true.
Omaha, you know, you see it all the time, doing good stuff, so I don't have a problem with it, I think it's valuable, and I think it could make the difference in getting this bond issue passed.
Okay,
And it's-
Mark had something he wanted to ask.
Yeah, and Mike brought up earlier the joint bond issue between the city and the county. The only bonds that I know of that the city can issue without a vote of the people is a revenue bond. And the revenue being, the city is paying for the communications, the county is paying for this communication. The money comes from the building commission, and I don't know if there are other sources. So I believe it was floated as a revenue bond.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Okay.
parking lots are paid for with revenue bonds.
Exactly, yes,
Just offsetting revenue.
right. So I don't, you know, this couldn't be a revenue bond.
Well,
Especially when we own the Fitz building, and it's a county property.
that's why I'm still confused about what Joe said, that it was a city bond issue we latched on, I never heard of it without a vote of the people.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think we need to continue talking about what it is we want in there, and I don't, how would the city feel if it was a, larger issue, it wasn't called public safety, but, you know, public property or public improvements or something of some nature, I don't know, some better name than that. You know, trouble is you'd have to have some projects in there yourself, probably, and then it gets to be astronomical,
You mean projects other than the ones that we've already talked about?
other than public safety. I mean, we wanna include, some people wanna include environmental services, others wanna include, plumbing at the correction facility, which I have a hard time getting my arms around.
I mean, would it also include all the items for public safety we
Yes.
talked about, or
Yes,
well, I mean, obviously, the greater the public safety component, probably the more, acceptable it would be to the taxpayers, I would imagine. But, whatever you collectively decide to do, I'll take it, to the city, to the mayor's office and to the city council and, explain it and see what the level of support we have on the third floor.
well, my feeling is, and I gotta quit talking, I think we ought to do public safety only.
Like Marty, one example is we're thinking of moving and upgrading the drivers, the treasurer's
Sure.
drivers, like at 108th and Maple, moving that over to the Fitz building, having it as a drive-through, which, you know, would have certain benefits for citizens in, you know, the western part of the city now that goes all the way out to Elkhorn. I mean, and it's those sorts of things that we're having a debate about, should this be in the bond offering or not?
What's hard for me to do is your question is somewhat political, so I can't, and it's hard for me to speak for the mayor, and it's hard for me to speak, especially since I haven't talked to her about that yet. I've talked about the public safety aspects, but I haven't talked to the city council, so I can't speak for them as to how they might be inclined if the bond issue was broader than just public safety. They might all agree that, you know, my constituents out in West Omaha would like a more convenient place to get their driver's licenses and license plates, et cetera, the treasurer's office, and might be perfectly comfortable with it, or some would and some wouldn't, depending on where their district is. So it's something that I would want to present to them at a meeting or a pre-council meeting and just test the waters and assess, are you guys comfortable or are you not? Let me take it back to the county so they can know and tweak this bond offering accordingly.
Claire?
I get the challenge of the decision of of renovating the Fitz. I would like to see us work that in. But to me, the plumbing at the jail is public safety. To me, that does belong, even if we're doing pure public safety. You look at the state with their escaped felon right now on the loose in North Omaha, and it's hard to say that adequate facilities aren't a matter of public safety, to me.
Jim?
Following up on that, I think you're right, but the original package that I think we all have been dealing with, which included that, and Dr. Foxall's here, and I think has talked to us before about the public safety applications of just about everything that they do at corrections. The public safety involvement that we have from emergency services, which should be apparent to everybody. If we have a tornado, who are you going to call? And then public safety goes directly to that. And we've heard from the environmental folks about the public safety applications if we have a flash flood of what they do. So, if it gives anybody heartburn talking about, well, our sewers at the correctional center public safety, or as what we do in terms of a tornado or a flood public safety, then relabel the thing. Do what needs to be done is the bottom line. And what doesn't need to be done is by and by you miss this boat and you come back and you say, well, sorry, we didn't include it in that bond issue, which we could have financed for 2% a year. We're going to have to do it with property tax increases. Those are your choices. So we need to have a forward-looking 21st century view of what we're going to do with this bond issue to modernize Douglas County, the bulk of which will be public safety, but it doesn't have to be exclusively public safety. And we need to do what needs to be done. Mr. Ewing makes a compelling point that we're paying rent on a not ideal venue right now that he's eager to move out of. We also have an opportunity in the not too distant future to pick up a paying tenant from the state of Nebraska in the form of the Department of Motor Vehicles. And we have a large, structurally sound building that's just waiting there in western Douglas County, where the population center now is, to serve the citizens of Douglas County. I appreciate the fact that Marty's here and offering the cooperation of the mayor and the city administration, because we need that. And there's stuff in here that will benefit both the city and the county's public safety operations, certainly the communications system. There's a way to do all of this, but we need to look at a comprehensive, forward-looking, strategic approach to this, and not just put blinkers on and say, if it isn't strictly public safety, then it's not going to happen. Because if it doesn't happen now with the public safety bond, so we rebranded the public safety and modernization bond, or whatever you want to call it, it happens that way on a fiscally sound bond finance approach, or it happens on the back of our homeowners in a property tax increase. I'm not going for that. So those
Dan?
are our alternatives.
Dan?
Oh, I'm not going to these committee meetings as much as I used to now, but the 4.5 years when I was, it's just most of the time when we don't think of environmental services as public safety because it's, we normally think of law enforcement or 911, but most of the meetings I was at where Kent was going over things they're taking care of, majority of it was really public safety stuff. It's just not in the way that we would think of it. Just tag on what Commissioner Kavanaugh said with the flash floods or noxious weeds, or things that maybe don't seem like they're a huge threat, but they could be if they're not taken care of properly. So I just don't think it's a stretch to say that environmental services is public safety, because I think a lot of it is. And then another thing I remember hearing multiple times is, or I guess I should say not hearing, I don't think I ever heard one good thing about the property on Mankey Circle as far as, so if this were to go, environmental services were to move to the Fitz home, it sounds like we'd be able to get a not so great of a property off our hands. So I just wanted to add that in.
Mark, you have something?
Yeah, a couple things. One, playing off what Dan said, and something I wanted to go over. The Mankey property could be declared surplus and sold. Okay? It'd put it back on the tax rolls. It'd bring in a little bit of money for the sale. It's not gonna bring a lot, cause it's way less than desirable building. Have you ever been there, anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Been there.
Just couldn't resist it.
Cat lives there. You know, the landfill, if there's a disaster, the landfill has got to be prepared to take care of the disaster. Emergency management is public safety. And as far as the jail, if the plumbing goes out and we don't have money to fix it in the oldest section, and you have to admit that the residents of our hotel there like to flush towels and other things down the toilets, anything they can. We could be forced into an overcrowded situation when we shouldn't be. It's also at the jail a public health issue, because feces on your cell floor is definitely a public health issue.
And you would know.
I would know.
I'm just, oh, pardon me, I didn't say that.
My cell was always clean with a toothbrush.
Are you done, Mark?
Yes, I'm done.
Tim Kavanaugh wanted to say
I
something.
just wanted to ask, if I heard Doug right, the Taxpayers for Freedom, they would be more likely to support this if we could offer a tangible savings to the taxpayers. Would you be more likely to support it if the treasurers were part of this, or less likely?
More likely if the treasurer and other departments were part of it.
Thank you.
But if you can itemize the savings down the line, maybe not the first or second or fifth year, but down the line, how much the projected savings would be by consolidating the offices, I think it would be a really good way to market it to the taxpaying public.
It would be important to have your support as well.
Mark?
Just to try to emphasize the public safety piece of the corrections component, and I want to talk about plumbing, but what we're looking at is more than just about plumbing. We've got a 40-year-old building that we're talking about that inmates have used since 1978, 24/7, so there's a lot of wear and tear on that area. We're talking about doors that were put on 40 years ago that officers can't, if there's an emergency incident in the 3B area, those officers have to key each one of those doors to get the inmates out, as opposed to the modernized version where you hit one button, you pop all those doors at the same time. That's a fire issue for us, it's a safety issue or something. And I keep thinking about what happened down in Tecumseh. We need to have up-to-date equipment, and that's paramount for the safety of our staff, certainly, and also for the safety of the inmate population, not all the inmates that, some inmates engage in some type of disturbance, not all the inmates are engaged in disturbance, so we have to think about their health and welfare too. Also, we're also thinking about the Lexan, it's not glass, it's a plexiglass in those areas. It's really hard to see after 30, 40 years of wear and tear, when officers are making the rounds at night, it's hard to see into those housing units, because you can't see past that Lexan because it's all scratched up. And, that again is a safety issue for staff as well. Some of the old furniture in those old side units, really sharp edges, and just wearing out, and again, that becomes a safety issue. Sometimes you have to use force inside those housing units, and I want my old staff banging against one of those sharp, jagged edges, really sustain some serious injury. Other thing we're looking at is roof replacement. We've had some of those terrible rains we've had in the past few years, and it's like draining inside the building. We just had that roof replacement on the 3B area, so that helped. We still have some roof issues. And anytime it's raining inside our building, you got cleanup, you got mold you got to deal with, and you got to move the inmates out. Anytime you move 60, 40, 36, 32 inmates, that again is a safety issue. So again, and I've talked about this in the past, you see public safety out of doors, okay? It's in your face, all right? I've been there, but you don't see public safety inside the jail because you've got four walls and nobody sees it. But movement of people, lighting, and that's another issue that we're looking at, effective lighting, LED lights, modernized lighting, so staff can see. And because we're an older facility, the lines of sight aren't as they were designed in the 2004 edition of our building. So we've got to light up those dark spots, and LED lighting is gonna help us. So if we're looking
I think, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we have a deadline about August at this,
we're shooting
to put this together. So we've really gotta make sure we're working toward that date. The other thing we've gotta figure out, I mentioned this last meeting, I know Mike, you initiated the first responders.
Yep.
Jim, you've been involved in that. You know, we need to, like any campaign, start to figure out, hey, where that's going, cause this will not, because of Doug and his group, it's not gonna be automatic pilot deal. And the mood with those 7%, I've had people saying things to me in the last 48 hours about that. You've heard that too, John. I mean, there's a big time unhappiness around about the tax increase. And they're not even sure who to blame for it, the county. You know, even though it was state turf, the county's raising my taxes. And so we need to be starting to focus on that too, going in.
Well, I think, listening around here, that I think the consensus is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we do something that Commissioner Kavanaugh suggested, we do make it something that is expanded and covers these other things that we can defend. The only concern I have is that I want something to pass. And that's my concern, and I think if we start doing other things that are not sexy and law enforcement types and helicopters and lights and red, blue lights, that the taxpayers are gonna be no deal. But, and then on the other hand, we have to present that to the mayor, and she and the city council will say, yeah, we think, you know, environmental services is something we wanna see their office moved. I don't think we're talking about what they do, I think we're talking about building them a new facility, which, you know, I think they're still doing the important things they do, but anyhow, I'll give up on that, but now we're at the point where let's decide what we wanna put into this package, I think. And present it to Marty and some delegation from us, go up to talk to the mayor or whatever's appropriate, and try to sell the deal and get her support and the city council and get it done. I talked to Chuck Cedarstrom, who's the president, I think, of the first responders, and he's very interested in getting together and talking to us, so we're gonna have their support. But that's what I think we need to do now, is let's put the package together, go for it.
Mike, maybe what we should do is invite him to a
Well,
meeting soon,
he was-
so that we could get his input if he's gonna be involved.
Well, he was gonna call and say, I'll give you some dates, and I haven't heard from him.
Okay.
He's traveling, so.
And let's try to do that.
Yep.
Who had their hand?
Well,
Joe,
just
do you-
following up on that quick point that Mike's made there, and I know that he's had conversations with Chuck and Ray Somberg, who's the executive director of First Responders. And we're in the process, we mentioned this at the last meeting, of developing some information for them. Patrick and Diane are working on it, that will go to Ray and Chuck in the next few days,
Okay.
relative to the public safety benefits contained in this proposal. But the larger proposal, I think that you know, we have been working on it for a long, long time now, needs to be defined, as Mike says, and finalized. And so I would suggest that maybe at the next Administrative Services Committee, which is the 28th, right?
Yes, 8 AM.
That we have asked everybody coming into this to bring your best numbers to that, so we'll have pretty definitive numbers on the package coming out of that meeting on the 28th. So everybody here, the stakeholders here, go over your numbers, sharpen your pencils again, because Mike's exactly right. We gotta decide who's in this boat and who's not, and go forward from there. And if it's a little bit of rebranding, well, so be it, but we need to do the right thing here. And I think that by the 1st of July, then, we should be able to come to some definitive conclusion relative to scope.
Okay,
Mark?
Paul, emergency management, how will you benefit by moving out there? And will it save us any money?
Well, it does a couple things. One thing is it puts us close to 911, which is very helpful to us. I mean, our siren computer's out there, and everything is out there, so just having that presence out there is very beneficial to us. Plus, we work closely with the sheriff's department, and we work with Kent quite a bit on the planning and preparations that we have for disasters, as well as the response recovery that you mentioned at the landfill. We work with county engineer extensively, they're helping us throughout, even the World Series and other things that we do. So it's these other agencies that we interact with on a regular basis that will be out there, so we'll facilitate that.
And you are currently at a less than convenient and not easily accessible location in the sea level.
It's not good.
It's secure.
It's very
Secure,
secure,
but
which
it's
is a
not.
good thing, but, it's, for us, for administratively, working with our community partners, it's very difficult. Parking and typically they work during the day, we try to get a hold of them after hours and work with us, and it's very difficult.
Right, and in emergency management, seconds count.
We react quick, we try to stay
I mean,
fast.
2 minutes difference can make a big difference in
Well, when it comes to,
everything.
especially, notification and activation.
And Kent, how would you benefit and how would you save us money?
Two aspects. One is for the safety and just the operational efficiencies of our staff and the people who come to our building. These are our volunteers that are the planning commission, board of adjustment, those types of things, and all of the folks who come to our office to do business. We have a very less than desirable situation in terms of separating kind of public space from other space. It's more of an issue with our public meetings. A lot of these are held in the evenings, and we are compromised on a safety aspect for our staff and for those people who are coming to our meetings, to be able to just have a more secure facility. But it's also better for the public in terms of the meeting space. The second and I think more important aspect from a cost saving standpoint is the fact that, and it was mentioned before, that 156 in Maple is much more the geographic center of things. From our operational functional capacity, by operating out of that facility, we have now eliminated anywhere from a half hour to an hour of travel time that is just totally inefficient windshield time that we have to deal with. And so that is more efficient not only for us, but it's also more efficient for the majority of people who are doing business with our office. And so that helps us. We are adjacent to a number of functions, other functions, the engineer in the garage, where with our vehicles, that helps us even from just a fueling standpoint. I mean, we're not having to backtrack over there to get fuel, things like that. So efficiency-wise, that's better. That allows me now to have an hour more productive time that I can use to providing services.
Not just you, but many of your employees.
Oh, I'm talking mainly about my employees.
So each one would have an hour increased efficiency most every day.
Not all of them, but the majority of them would be.
And the first time I went to your office when I was a new commissioner, I had a heck of a time finding it.
Well, we do have, there's parking issues, accessibility issues.
And
Yeah,
building
that's right.
issues, major, if we don't move you, we got a lot of big renovation. The one last thing is, there is a major prostitution ring operating right behind it, which added to the.
How do you know that?
Never heard anything about that.
Cat told me. I couldn't find him, I just never heard that story.
Constance, thank you, Constance, for getting that.
Joe, and one other point I wanted to bring, and I think Doug brought it up, is in this bond offering, one of the things to look forward to is how we efficiently would spend this money. And so I want to ask Jerry and Jeff if they think they're, from an efficiency standpoint, if we would do all these things at the Fitz building and get it basically all done at one time, it would seem like that would be a more efficient operation. But you guys would know better than I, so tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, it is, and that's how we kind of got into a master plan and development of that campus out there. There's especially in time. I mean, how many years can you put on for lease payments, and they go up and up. And by the way, I don't think you wanna remain at 108th and Maple. So if we relocated, if we didn't put them in the package, we're probably talking a different rent, so now that rent's maybe $100,000 a year, cause you're no longer in an area that's
We need,
much cheaper.
right now, we've got 84th and Cass, and we've got 108th and Maple within about a mile and a half of each other. And 108th and Maple facility needs to be a little bit further west to better serve the citizens. 156th and Maple is a perfect location for us from that perspective, as well as better service when you look at now the state is not going to be co-located with us, so that means the possibility of extended hours, that means the possibility of a drive-through and other things that would serve the citizens better.
Mark?
Well,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go on, Jerry.
No,
And I'll
I
take
was just
mine.
gonna say the utility savings, the
Yes.
lease savings, sale of the building, not pumping money into a building that should be.
Sound like you're talking
declared-
about the election commissioner's office.
Yeah, how long
Thank
have
you,
we
sir.
been in the 108th and Maple location for the treasurer's office?
Oh, it's been quite a while.
25 years probably.
25 years?
25.
And your
Okay.
building's 40 years old.
20 years would be $1.5 million we spent in rent. So we're talking more than $1.5 million savings over the course of a 10-year. And over the course of what is our bond going to be, a 20-year?
Yeah, probably 20-year.
Over the course of a 20-year lease period, it'd be a good portion, 10% of what we're looking for.
You know, if I could, I think we're beyond, everybody's tuned into this and we're just kind of talking about what we can do, and I think everybody's on the same page. I think what we need to do is a suggestion. I think each department and elected official needs to write 4 or 5 sentences about what you would do, keep it plain and clear about what you need out of this bond issue, and also bring up the financial, a couple more sentences about the finances of it, the savings and so forth, and also the advantages to the citizens. I think just a nice short little thing, like, 10 sentences long, and I think it's ironic when you talk about that building, I just started thinking about, what about the election commissioner? And frankly, I know this is a hot button deal, but the assessor register of deeds are trying to stuff that office into the 4th floor, which it doesn't fit. And I mean, I think we ought to broaden our horizons and start talking about those 2 offices as well, and the election office particularly, sitting out there. I had somebody call me last week, said, where is it? They're north of Dodge. I said, well, you have to go south of Dodge. That's where the north,
Right.
So anyway, it's nuts. But I think we ought to do that. And I think if we do that, we can see, we'll write out what it is we're after. It'll be clear. We'll get it in a document and go from there.
Like, if I could, that's a great idea, and if they could direct those to Diane, who's working on this talking paper that we'll use for a lot of different people, but we'd like to get it to the first responders ASAP.
Good.
And if there is a chance, maybe, we're gonna meet that morning of the 28th, okay, 8. Then if we could have Cedarstrom in the afternoon at our meeting, that might be the time to go through those numbers again, or you decide, Mike, as we continue to work at those and finalize it. And the departments need to work with Jerry and Jeff to try to get those numbers put together, what, that's gonna cost, cause with the treasurer, if you're doing the drive-up window, I assume you may be adding, you'll be.
Well,
spending
that's
some-
been in there, that's
Yeah.
been in there
It's-
from the
it's been in
beginning.
there.
Yeah, just
From
be
the
sure of the
24th.
numbers so that
Right.
we're finalizing it, we're not gonna be short. And then the corrections will work with Jerry, and I know you've been working on that, cause you talked about it last week.
Diane, how soon do you want this information? Soon?
Just whenever, you can get it to me, yes, as soon as possible. We do have a working draft. I already have information from corrections,
Okay.
911, emergency services, environmental services. But the question I have is, when do we send this over to the first responders? We were kind of waiting until a decision was actually made of who would be included.
Well,
So
I-
again, I have the draft, and you probably wanna look at it before it goes,
I
so.
think, well, we do, but I think the decision's been made. We're including everybody and their mother in this.
But I would suggest that as long as we have all of the public safety components in there, send that to them. We'd like to review it before it goes
Okay.
out. But that's what they're asking for. They're not so concerned with the non-public safety apps that we're gonna add on to it.
Okay.
But the public safety components, which I think you have the bulk of already.
It sounds like I do, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yes.
Send it to me too.
Morning, may I speak here, guys?
Absolutely, yes.
My name is Jim Sass, I was here, last week, and, listening to you guys, this room is full of a lot of intelligent, smart people here. You know, if you guys were running a business, your own business, and you were running it, you know, to make money and make a living and employ people and whatnot, you need to treat this situation as if it was your business. The most efficient way possible, you know, spend the least amount of money, get the biggest bang for your buck. You know, I've heard a few people say, you know, we can save money by doing this, we can save money by doing this. Then all of a sudden we get on this tangent over here and we talk about something else. Marty, what do you have to do with the police department?
I work for the mayor's office.
Okay.
The mayor's office, like all city departments.
He's the chief of
reports to me.
staff.
I'm the chief of staff for the
Chief
mayor.
of staff.
He used to work with Tim Dunning.
Okay, did you, mention the helicopter Able One does not have an infrared, camera on it? Did I understand you correctly to say that?
No, I didn't say that, and the fact is, it has an old camera that they need replacing. I didn't address that issue, but that's the answer.
Okay. I'm a pilot by trade and I retired from the FA. And you know something, that was nice once in a while for, me to talk to the guys with Able One and get a video of what they had discovered, because I'd get a call from air traffic control, because one of our commercial airliners, and any of you guys fly places? You do? Stick your hand up, how many of you guys fly airplane? Commercially?
I'm a passenger.
Yeah.
Oh, as a passenger?
Okay. Well, you know, guys, we have people in our community here, I've been here in Omaha since the sixties, and, we have people in our community that take a pin or, some kind of mechanism. You can buy these at Wally World, and it's a laser deal, you know, and they shine in the cockpit of airplanes. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but it temporarily just blinds you, you can't see squat. Now, when air traffic would call and the airliner would call and say, hey, we just been lasered and whatnot, lo and behold, guess what? Sheriff's Department and Police Department would go out there and they would try and find this individual that was pointing the laser, you know? And it would be nice to have equipment. I got to look at movies and whatnot, where they'd see a bunch of people in the backyard playing with the lights and whatnot, except we could have had a fatality, you know, an airplane plowing in the ground because the guys in front of that thing couldn't see the landing airplane. Well, that's a kind of a public safety thing, but this community, as large as it is, we ought to have the best of the best, you know, and stop worrying about all this nickel dime stuff out here, my little turf and whatnot, and you guys can do that here. You know, I can't believe we don't have infrared, that movie thing that's on the helicopter now, that's kind of antiquated and outdated, understand that, but it could be more efficient, because I guess a guy who got stuck with writing a brief, so our attorneys could prosecute this case in a civil atmosphere. Now, I hope some of us people sitting here can be of help to you guys, and in coming up with your fix to this. It's, look at it like you're running your business here. You know, some of you people are business people, you've had businesses, whatnot. Now, you know how to do that stuff. You know, if we need to fix stuff like in the correction department, now let's fix it. Either that or just set up a bunch of tents or something, you know, for people.
Well, you know, I think great ideas, I like Diane to include them in this draft you're sending out, because that we need them to support this as well.
We're not in, on the hot seat, but you said something this morning, the meetings downstairs, that, we need to think of whose money we're spending.
Right.
And, you know, that's true, it's not your money crap, you know, it's not yours, it's not your money.
Absolutely.
Hell, it's mine and everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, it includes all of us here. But if you can take your head and twist it a little bit and think that way, you know, I think you'll come up with something here. You know, we need a bond issue here, and Doug said something earlier, you know, get behind it, you better believe it, you know, get people out here that, hey, these guys are looking out for us here. You know, yes, they'll stand out here in the street corner, signs and whatnot.
All right. Well, we'll include them, we'll be sure we include them in that draft and get some ideas from. Well, I think we've actually got some things cleared up today. Does anybody have any other things they wanna talk about this bond issue? I think, you know, once we get this put together, we go talk to Marty and he'll get us an audience with the mayor and we'll see what we can do. All right?
That needs to happen.
Yeah, pretty quick. Okay, well, I really appreciate you coming, Marty.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Try to keep on
You're
your
welcome.
if you can.
Call if you need anything.
I will.
Call.
Thanks a lot. Okay. I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay, DJ had a meeting that he had to go to. Let's see, we've got, actually had a discussion regarding the 2016-2017 county budget. You wanna do that now?
Sure.
Okay. The update. Everybody's staying to see what got cut. Thanks. Okay.
All right, so this is the same page as last week that basically showed that in the general fund, if you sum up the total departments, on the expense side at least, we were about 5.6 million over our target. So we could go to the next page. You know, there were some revenue offsets, and this just showed revenue projections. I think we talked about where there were some potential to increase the revenues. I had talked to Kent about increasing that to 250. Yesterday, I went and saw Brian Cruz and spent some time out in the election commission building, and I do agree with Mike on the building. And so there's some potential there. We went through it and went through some timing, and there was actually, I think that 350 is gonna go up to, by close to $400,000 just on some timing issues as we, you know, went through it in detail. So there is upside there. And then there was, I talked to Jerry and he agreed that they would keep their number flat. So those are all revenue increases from there. So if you factor that in, the number that we're looking at as a deficit to a balanced budget is, you know, 4,170,000. So that was the number that we're trying to come to grips with. So we can go to the next page. Is there one? Oh, there is a next page. Did we put it?
That's the bad news.
Well, we came within 4 million.
Yeah. So, for discussion purposes, you can see these are the adjustments I made in terms of revenue increases, that we could get 724,000 from revenue. And then the expense decreases from the request. You know, like I say, the capital improvement we talked about last week, the election commissioner, 115,000, Brian's okay with that. Employee fringe benefits, we talked about the change in retiree medical. Corrections, 300,000. Mark, I'm sure, is in shock, but we'll keep moving. The assessor, the register of deeds, 250,000. That's basically keeping her within her guidelines. And Mark was about $1 million over for different reasons, but you know, a lot of it was the number of people out at corrections. So that's like giving Mark 70% of what he asked for over his target. The sheriff, we heard their issue last week, you know, and I'll just bring this up because it occurred to me again when I heard that the city was going to annex 8 more subdivisions. So in general, if you look at it over the last 3 years, they would have annexed about 25% of the population of unincorporated Douglas County would now be part of the city. So Tom Wheeler's argument last week, well, if you take this 275 away, we won't be able to hire the 4 new deputies that we need to replace the retirees. And, you know, doesn't it really ask to do the analysis of if you've lost 25% of your population, maybe you don't need to hire 4 new deputies, but that's just a point for discussion that we're not gonna settle today. But that would be my counter to Sergeant Wheeler.
You still talking or?
No, if people wanna talk,
Okay.
absolutely.
On the assessor register of deeds, we spoke last time about a discussion with them relative to GIS consolidation.
Yeah.
Are we making any moves on that?
I scheduled a meeting at the end of the month, but that didn't work for Diane, so now we're looking at like the second week in July, so nothing's scheduled yet.
Okay.
I
The second week.
didn't hear that, but what, no response?
We're looking at future dates about the second week in July. I gotta get with Mary Ann and Diane. find a date that
I think we
works.
just need to order it done. I don't know, is that person in a union? In her office?
Well, I don't know, but what is the savings there, Joe?
Yes.
If they were consolidated, what's that number? It was in the hundreds of thousands, I know that.
Yeah, what can we say, Constance? The GIS budget was
333, was
The
that?
four salaries were 333
333.
plus fringe.
plus fringe, so, I mean, you do that up, that's 400,000, and, you know, then the question is, if you move that over and put it all, in this freestanding GIS group, how many people would Shomlo need? I'm sure it wouldn't be 4 and 4 equals 8. I don't know the exact number, but that's the number based on that, assuming you could save at least 2, maybe more, head count.
Well, I think we order that, I just order it, you know, I don't know how else we can do it, just cut it out of the budget, say it's gone, that's what's happening, and we're moving 2 people over to GIS and, you know, maybe the fittest person survive. There's no other way to be polite about it. The other thing is with the sheriff's office today, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but Kudlak was talking during his presentation about how it's amazing how all this growth is taking place. He's had 4 or 5 developers come out and stuff. So I mean, I've always been a skeptic of what Tim has to say too, because it seems to me when you annex, that things are shrinking. I don't know, maybe, and they always say, oh no, there's so much development. So I don't know, we need to find out really
Yeah.
what the census is, and if it is, we tell him the same deal, no new deputies. And, you know, that's what I think.
What if we find out the census went up in
Yeah.
unincorporated Douglas
Yeah.
County, as it has?
Yeah.
For 20 years, I've been hearing, gee, the city just annexed, so
Yeah.
there's nobody left out in the county, let's take away all the deputies. And yet, we ignore the fact that the population keeps rising.
Yeah.
Losing 6 or 8 SIDs out of 140 that are growing
Yeah.
doesn't take 25% of the population away from, I would ask before
Yeah.
we make decisions based on what we think is happening with the population, that let's just look at the figures. Get the figures from MAPA they project differently now, and they're getting more accurate between your 10-year census on what the actual population is. And I would ask that we look at the figures before we make decisions, again, based on generalizations.
Well, I agree with you, because what Kudlak said today, very shocked. So, I mean, I just thought, what was happening was that, Jim?
Okay, Joe, if I'm doing these numbers right, because we don't have this page, that your modifications bring the number asked down by 2.6 mil, is that
Can you go to
right?
the next page, Gary?
Okay, that's what I'm looking at. So then that
Million and a
1.5,
Yeah.
and we don't have that page either, is what we're left with if we accept the modifications that you're proposing.
Well,
And-
I just want to emphasize, that this is just a discussion point that I put out for discussion.
Sure, we all understand that. We
Okay.
all understand that, and we appreciate your hard work. Somebody's got to be the Grinch, and you're a great one.
Thank
Yes,
you.
he is.
So the point is that 1.5 could easily be met from reserves without adversely affecting anything.
Well, I don't know easily. It's getting to my point where I wouldn't be comfortable going much above it, but
Let me put it this way: would you be comfortable with 1.5 out of reserves?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, and if you go back to the page with the budget cuts, and you show 619,000 on capital improvements, I know we've increased what they want, but I honestly feel we need to maybe make that just 500,000 decrease.
Well, no, don't forget, we have it targeted in at 1,200,000 now.
I know.
And last year it was 635,000, so we've effectively doubled it, and I talked a little bit with Jerry and Jeff, and I thought they were comfortable with the 1.2.
Oh, we are.
He's always been comfortable with whatever we give him. Thing is, we are so far behind.
Asked for more.
We are so far behind the curve on capital improvement, that it worries me.
Still be at 1.2 after this?
I'm not sure, is that?
They'd still be at 1.2 after this?
Yeah, the request was 1,800,000.
Wow.
What are we talking about?
But remember, that request was for the next 5 years, just to catch up to 1.8.
Right. But of that eliminated 619, is there any of that could be or is included in the proposed bond issue financing?
I
Of the
thought we
619.
said there was some from corrections.
I thought we
There was
talked
some
about
from
that,
corrections.
yeah. So it's a little
Some
less than
from
619 if you factor the bond issue into it.
Yeah.
Joe, wasn't that the radio number and we already took that out?
No, I thought that we pulled the list of capital spending that was purely building capital that comes under Jerry and Jeff, and they looked at that and they said, oh, this much is for projects at correction that would be now included in the bond. So it wasn't the radio, because you're right, we already pulled that out.
Jim?
I have one other, on the employee fringe benefit. We're not doing anything with that. Oh yeah, we're doing 250 out of that. What does that actually come out of in terms of the employee?
It comes out of the, having the retirees pay an increased percentage for their health insurance.
And what would that result in, like, per retiree in real dollars?
The dollar should be, I don't know how much it is per retiree, but that's just a transfer, dollar for dollar. It would, for like an example, instead of right now, for a retiree and spouse or family, it's, they pay 35% of their total premium and the county pays 65%. This would bring it up to where they would pay 50% and the county would pay 50%.
It'd be nice to know what that means to the
Yeah,
average
we should get that data.
retiree.
Kathy Adair
I have
does.
one other question, and Mike, I know you got this, and I believe Mary Ann did as well, relative to the UB&T
Yeah.
health savings account. There is apparently a proposed bump in that from $5 per quarter to $2 per month.
I said that to Patrick and he said it to Diane. Do you have anything to report on it? Probably
No,
not
I
yet.
got it this morning.
Yeah.
And I've been in meetings all day.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I mean,
but the bank does charge a fee. They upped it, I believe, last year. It looks like they're trying to up it again. We'll look into it. You know, there may be a different bank that would charge less, but there's gonna be a fee to be charged, and it's been borne by the person by the employee. I mean, the county could pick it up if they wanted to also.
We ought to try a local bank like Security National or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if there's a better deal out there, but there's gonna be some sort of administrative fee. Undoubtedly, it's a bank. But then the question is whether, can we find a better fee? And then if maybe there's something the county board would wanna pay themselves.
How many employees are involved?
Not very many. How many are in that plan?
Is that the HSA?
Yeah.
50?
Like 50.
Okay.
and that's an elective, you elect to go
Yes.
into that,
Yeah,
right?
it's the high deductible health plan.
So it's going up from $5 per quarter.
25% increase.
It's going up to $2 a month.
Hey Diane, I'll give you the name and the phone number of somebody at Security National, just did a great deal for us.
$24 instead of $20.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you his name and number.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
It's a really small amount.
Okay, so I think we've got our marching orders here, and it's a very good meeting. I think it's very productive. If we can just sell the mayor on this deal, it would be fabulous. If we can just get her to focus on public safety, and then we'll bring in all the tambourines and do our deal over here. And I really appreciate you folks